Senator Markey is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much, and thank you, thank you, Senator Thune. I've long advocated for privacy protections that include the principles of notice and consent, but a federal privacy bill must build on that framework by explicitly prohibiting certain types of data use. Today, companies amass troves of consumers' data and then repurpose that information to target ads in discriminatory ways. And that is why I recently introduced the Privacy Bill of Rights Act, comprehensive privacy legislation that bans discriminatory uses of consumers' private information. This legislation explicitly prohibits companies from using Americans' data to target employment, housing, healthcare, education, or financial opportunities in harmful, discriminatory ways. Ms. Giuliani, can you provide one example of how a company currently uses consumers' personal data to target individuals of particular genders or socioeconomic groups in ways that threaten Americans' civil rights?
Sure. I mean, I can give you a recent settlement in an ACLU case. Over the last several years, there were multiple charges that Facebook was facilitating discriminatory advertising, particularly in the housing, credit, and employment context where federal law prohibits discrimination. So, for example, allowing targeting of ads based on factors like race or gender, or things that would be proxies for that. Over the years, complaints were made. The company said that they were going to resolve the problem, but were slow to do so. And so the ACLU and other civil rights organizations filed a lawsuit, and the company, to its credit, has settled that lawsuit. But I think what this does is speak to a broader concern, and that's a question of how in this new online ecosystem are advertisers and others exacerbating discrimination, charging different prices for, let's say, a bus ticket, not allowing African Americans or women to see employment or housing opportunities.
Okay, so let me just follow up on that. Do each of the rest of you agree with Ms. Giuliani that it should be illegal for companies to use consumers' personal data in these harmful, discriminatory ways? Ms. Dixon?
So, Senator Markey, I think in terms of legislation prohibiting certain uses, as I've outlined, the GDPR is set up as principles-based and doesn't specifically prohibit uses, but principles of fair processing, as an example, will go some way to tackling the issues that you've outlined. I think in terms of the issue of discrimination, there's some complexity to the issue.
But in general, do you agree with Ms. Giuliani? In general, on discrimination?
In general, discrimination.
Okay, Mr. Polanski?
In general, yes.
Okay, in general, Mr. Steve? Okay.
Absolutely, I agree with
All right, now, thank you all. So let's move to children's privacy. I'll go to you, Mr. Steyer. Children are a unique, vulnerable group online. That's why earlier this Congress I introduced bipartisan legislation with Senator Hawley to protect kids and teens' privacy. This legislation is an update to the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, a law which I authored back in 1997. This law creates a critical new safeguards for young people. The legislation would extend protections to 13, 14, and 15-year-olds by requiring consent before collecting personal information about them, ban targeted ads to children, create an eraser button for parents and children to allow them to eliminate publicly available personal information submitted by the child or teen, and establish a youth privacy and marketing division at the Federal Trade Commission, which will be responsible specifically for addressing the privacy of children and minors in our country and marketing directly at children and minors in our country. We know we have a crisis in the country in terms of the targeting of children in our country by these online companies. So, Mr. Steyer, why is it critical that any comprehensive privacy law include these heightened protections for children and teens?
Well, we totally support the law, and we're glad it's bipartisan and that you have Senator Hawley on it. Look, we just believe you should fold the COPPA 2.0 law into this broader law that you're doing. The truth is, we all know this as parents and grandparents. Kids don't understand stuff. They may be more technically literate in a way, but they just don't understand it, so they deserve special protections. And the COPPA 2.0 law that you all have introduced is absolutely spot on, and I would urge everybody on this committee and in all 100 senators to support it.
Do you each agree that special protections have to be built in for children, Ms. Giuliani?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Polanski? Ms. Dixon?
And teens. The big
And
thing
teens.
with COPPA
Yeah.
is it stops at 12.
Yeah.
And we all know what teenagers are like. They need special protections too.
So this bill would lift it up to 16.
Correct.
And that's kind of, I think, a reasonable place to put it. I wish I could make it higher, but I think at least at 16, kids are just unaware, even though you're saying technically sophisticated, but their judgment in terms of what they might mean, what it might mean for themselves in the long run, just hasn't been well formed.
And California goes to 16. We took it up to 16 in the CCPA.
And in Europe?
16 in Ireland, 13 in other member states.
Yeah, I'm Irish, okay, so we like our privacy, you know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.